Good morning, boys and girls. I hope you're ready for a great day of learning. I have a story that I want to share with you. So I hope you're in a cozy space, and I hope that you are remembering what it's like to be back at Spring Trail at our meeting place all together for our story. Today I'm going to read a story that's called Growing Frogs, and it's going to talk about the life cycle of frogs. And I want you to think about, as I'm reading, what each stage of the life cycle is and what happens during that stage. And then you'll get a chance to do some of that sharing when we're finished. So I hope you enjoy this. This is a great book. When we get back into libraries, if you can check this one out, this is one of my favorite frog stories. It says, frogs are in danger. Did you know that? Don't ever take frog spawn from the pond in the wild. In a few minutes, if you don't know what frog spawn is, you'll learn about it. You should only take frog spawn from a man-made pond and only take a little. If you see it and know what it is, don't take it all. And always take frogs back to the pond where they came. Frogs won't live a very long life in a bucket if you try to keep them, and they do need pond water in order to grow. Here's our title page. The thing I like the most about this book is that it is a story about a little girl and her mom, but woven into the story is the life cycle and true facts about frogs. So this is one of my favorites. Once when I was little, my mom read me a story about a frog that grew bigger and bigger and bigger. And afterward, Mom asked me if I'd like to watch some real frogs growing. I know where there's a pond with lots of frogs in it, she said. We could bring some home. I was a little frightened. I don't want any frogs jumping around getting bigger and bigger and bigger, I said. But Mom gave me a hug. It's only a story, she said, and even when our frogs are grown up, they'll still be smaller than my hand. Oh, I said. Okay then. The next day, we went to look at the pond. The water was dark brown and there was gray jelly stuff floating on top. Yuck, I said. There's the frog spawn, Mom said. She pointed to the gray jelly stuff. I bet that was laid last Friday night. The frogs were croaking so loudly I couldn't get to sleep. And if you look, what they're talking about, the frog spawn is right here. And it kind of, if you see it for real, it's kind of jelly and you see little black dots. Kind of slimy looking. You see the black dot in the middle of each jelly shell, said Mom? That's going to grow into a tadpole. Where are the frogs? I asked. Tadpoles grow into frogs, she said. Little ones, no giant frogs here. Mom put some pond weed and some stones into a bag. She filled a bucket with pond water, and then I scooped a little of the frog spawn into it. Always use pond water for growing frogs at home. Tap water has chemicals like fluoride in it that might poison your frogs. So if you're ever lucky enough to find some frog spawn, make sure you take the pond water home with you. When we got home, we put everything into a big fish tank in the kitchen. The cat kept peering at it, so we had to put a wire net over the top. I counted 27 black dots. Each dot was inside its own jelly shell. The tank needs to be kept somewhere that's cool and away from direct sunlight. Can you see the cat in the picture trying to get into that tank? I wonder if Lindsay's cat Jelly might like to get into a tank filled with frog spawn. Every day when I woke up, I went downstairs to look at the frog spawn. The little dots grew into bigger dots, and then into tiny curls, and then one morning I saw the first tadpole wiggling out of its shell. In a tank, the eggs hatch into tadpoles about 10 days after they're laid. So this, from the beginning to the end, took 10 days. At first, the tadpoles didn't do much. They stayed close to their jelly shells and they nibbled at the pondweed. But after 2 or 3 days, they looked quite different. There were feathery things on their heads, and I could see their eyes. They swam very fast. The feathery things are called gills, and they're what underwater animals use for breathing. Can you think of another animal that has gills that helps them breathe? 10 of the eggs didn't hatch. The black dots went dull and cloudy, and Mom took them away. The main reason that the eggs don't hatch is that they aren't fertilized. Then we cleaned out the tank and put fresh pond water and weed into it. One of the tadpoles swam into my hand when I was putting a stone back. It was slippery and slithery, and it made me jump. Did you hear the 2 adjectives in that sentence? After the tadpoles hatch, the pond water needs to be changed at least twice a week. And remember, when you're changing this water, you need to use pond water. You can't use any water that comes from the tap in our house because of the chemicals. After a while, I got used to having the tadpoles, so I didn't look at them very often. When Mom told me their little feathery things had disappeared, I didn't believe her. But it was true. Tadpoles have gills on the outside of their bodies at first. Then they grow gills on the inside of their bodies, and the outside ones disappear. I was the one who saw the next change, though. "Look!" I shouted, and Mom rushed to see. Some of the tadpoles had grown 2 little bumps. Mom said the bumps would grow into back legs. Can you see the changes from that picture? These are illustrations, not real pictures of the frogs and the frog spawn and the tadpoles. But I think the illustrator does a great job showing us each step. They grew very quickly. One day there were 2 little bumps. The next day the bumps were stumps. The day after that they looked almost like real legs. And when the feet unfolded, they were webbed like tiny brownish green fans. "They aren't tadpoles anymore," I said, "but they're not quite frogs yet." The not quite frogs grew front legs next, and then their tails got shorter, and then their mouths got wider. "Now they're frogs," Mom said. "Baby ones." Have any of you been lucky enough to watch tadpoles grow into frogs? If you have, send me a little message. I'd love to know if you've been lucky enough to see that. Soon the baby frogs were popping up and gulping at the surface of the water. One of them tried to climb onto the stone, but it slid off. Mom said they were getting ready to leave the water. "Grown-up frogs breathe air," she said. "That's what the stones are for, so our frogs can climb out of the water and breathe." As tadpoles slowly turn into frogs, they grow lungs for breathing air, and their gills will disappear. Not long after that, Mom said it was time to take our baby frogs back to live in the pond with all the other baby frogs. I was sorry to leave them, but Mom said we could come back and visit every day. Baby frogs need space to grow and room to hop around. Grown-up frogs live most of their lives on land, returning to the ponds only to breed or to lay more eggs, which will then turn into frog spawn. One rainy morning, a week later, Mom woke up very early. "Hurry," she said, and we ran downstairs and out to the pond. There were hundreds of frogs hopping over the grass. "They're looking for dark, wet places to live," Mom said, "but they won't go far, and in a couple of years they'll be back to lay frog spawn of their own." "Will they be bigger then?" I asked. "Just a little," said Mom. Good, I said. I like having frogs jumping around, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I think this is such a fun picture. What would you do if you walked outside one morning and saw all of these frogs hopping around? The end. I am lucky enough to live, there's a pond in my backyard, and late in spring and in the summer, sometimes if it's real quiet, you can hear some frogs croaking, and we've seen them down at the pond. It's fun to go watch them. Okay, I want you to stop and think about the different stages of the life cycle of the frog. What does it start as? What does it end as? And what happens at each stage? And I want you to share your learning with me today. I hope you have a great day. I miss you all. I love you all. Thanks for listening.